How we doing, boys and girls? TJ here, and we are taking you through the deadlift. This is going to be a longer form video. We're going to do one of these every single month. And first and foremost, probably the most important move to get right is the deadlift. So, without further ado, let's look at it. So the reason that we do the deadlift is to really try and develop full body strength and power. It is a lower body movement rather than anything else. Like, it's not really going to develop your upper body. It will develop some strength in your torso, but it's not really an upper body movement. It's a lower body movement. You'll see a lot of guys in their traditional bro splits where they split up their body parts will do deadlifts on a back day. This is incorrect. It's not the back that is utilizing or that is being utilized. It's the legs that are driving off the ground. That is what is lifting the bar. The back is just holding the bar where it needs to be. The legs are the mover of the movement. It's primarily going to develop posterior chain and the legs. So just as I said there before, if it's correctly done, it's actually going to reduce any risk of injuries and can actually be found to really improve lower back strength and health. So you see a lot of people that skip doing deadlifts because of their lower back, when in actual fact, if you modify it or if you do it well when you're healthy, it's going to be a really good thing for you to do. I also think because this move is going to enable us to lift the most amount of weight in the gym more than any other move, it's probably going to add to some sort of good strength development that we can't get from anywhere else. We must, though, we have to bear in mind that we are not doing this to deadlift the most amount of weight. We are deadlifting so that we can become better rugby players. With this guide, yes, you should be able to lift more weight as long as you get strict with it and you do it properly. But the goal is to not lift the most amount of weight. The goal is to be a better rugby player. So always bear that in mind when you're doing the deadlift. Okay, so now looking at how it's done. Firstly, we need to look at the setup. So how you get ready to pick the bar off the ground. If you get this wrong, the lift is going to go wrong itself. So it's all in the setup. I suggest that you get this down before you even begin to think about lifting heavy weights. Firstly, we need to set our foot width. And the foot width in this instance, and for the deadlift, not for the squat, but for the deadlift, is going to be your maximum jump stance. So if you just take a step forward, put 2 feet together and jump as high as you can, set it 3 times in a row, and it's going to be the average of those 3. Then you're going to use that as your foot width. Now we're going to look at where our feet are in relation to the bar. The bar should be mid-foot, not of the foot that you can see, but of the total foot. So it should be right up against your shins in the center of your gravity. Next, arms from there go straight down to grab the bar. You don't need to go wider with your arms. Your arms should pretty much nestle just outside of your knees, straight down from your shoulders. So to get your arm width, simply just reach down and grab the bar. It doesn't matter about your body position quite yet. Get the bar first. Then you're going to pull your knees, scapula and bar in a straight line, so they should all be in a vertical line together. Everyone's setup is going to look different because you all have different limb lengths. So bear that in mind. You have different limb lengths, different tightnesses. So everyone's is going to be slightly different. But the main part is if we can get our scapula, which is our shoulder blades, our knees and the bar all in a nice straight line, we're going to be set to lift. As I mentioned before, everyone should look different, but if you stick to these principles, you're going to be in a good place to go. Next, we're going to look at getting set. A lot of people will ignore this part, and that's another part of where the lift goes wrong. If you get that set up perfectly, we're in a perfect stage to get set and get ready to lift that bar. So what you're going to do is take a huge breath into your belly. You're going to take the slack off of the bar and bring tension through your hamstrings and all the way through to your back. You're going to pull your shoulder blades together and down so that they're in your back pocket. That's going to give you a nice flat back. And again, your knees, scapula and bar should be in a straight line. And again, everyone's going to look different. But this is what it should look like with the setup included. So you're going to just get your setup as normal. Reach down for the bar. We're in that setup position. Now we're going to get set. Big breath in and we're ready to lift. So it's pulling the slack out of the bar, creating tension in your hamstrings, and taking a deep breath into the belly. Tension in the hamstrings should carry all the way into your back. Make sure your back is nice and flat. This doesn't necessarily mean an overarch like you're posing for a porn magazine. This just means that your back is nice and tight and that we're not going to waste any energy. There's so many different joints in the back that you really want to keep it nice and tight so that we don't waste any energy lifting the bar off the ground. Okay, finally we get to look at lifting that bloody bar off the ground. You're going to drive your feet through the ground. We call a deadlift a pull, but actually it's a push. You're going to push your feet down into the ground, and that is what is going to lift the bar off the ground. You're then going to aggressively squeeze your glutes to stand your body up. The glutes roll here is to stand you up and bring you to an upright position and bring that bar into the hips. You don't have to actually picture standing yourself up. All you have to do is picture these two steps, and that's what's going to complete the deadlift. To complement these two things, you're going to use that big breath that you took into your belly to keep a strong brace through your core throughout the whole of the movement. And if you got your setup, you get set, and this all right, the bar's going to travel vertically straight, and it's going to be a really efficient movement to pull a lot of weight up in the air. So you drive your feet through the ground, squeeze the glutes, and that stands you up, pulls the bar into the hips. Real simple, real effective, great movement. So it all seems simple enough, but a lot of people can get this wrong. So let's look at some common mistakes. First one is when people try and protect their back and they pull their scapula behind the bar, or that's where they start with it. It ends up being more of a squat. It's a hip dominant move, not a knee dominant move. See the angle there in my knee? It's all out of whack, and what this means is that the bar is going to have to travel around my knee in order to get up. If it doesn't, then that means the bar's too far away, and that's going to be even worse, going to put more pressure on my back. Next mistake I see is people starting with the bar too far away from the middle of their foot. They put it in the middle of the foot that they can see, and that is too far away from your center of gravity. It throws it off, and I see this quite often when people are doing their second or third or fourth rep in a movement, because when they lower it, they forget to get their knees forward and drop the bar right into that shin. So they actually start it, they start their first rep mid-foot, but by the second and third rep, they've let the bar drop and go a little bit away from them, and then they're lifting quite away from you. And what this does is put a bit too much pressure on your lower back. Obviously, because it's away from your center of gravity, you can't lift as much, and it's just not as good a movement. And it can be corrected by just making sure that your scap, your knees, and the bar is in a straight line. Obviously, if the bar is in front of your knees, that's inefficient. Next, we're going to look at lack of tension. So this is where you don't take the slack off the bar and you're going to lose a lot of energy in that back. If you go heavy, you're going to be risk putting an injury. And also, you can't utilize your glutes as well if you've got a loose back. That ends up being a back dominant movement. Obviously, what I'm doing here is an exaggerated version, but the point still remains. Next one is if you're picturing pulling the bar up, you're very at risk to letting your hips shoot right up, and again the movement ends up being lower back dominant. It's a lot harder to involve your glutes. It's a lot more difficult to see this, but what you should see is in a good deadlift, the back angle should remain the same going up, like this one here, to the knees. The back angle should only change once you get to the knees. Otherwise, it should remain the same angle. Whereas a bad one, the hips will shoot higher and the bum will come up first. The bum and the shoulders should be in the same angle to the ground when the bar is on the floor and when the bar is at the knee. The two ways to correct this are simply just to do the two steps that I said before. If you drive your feet through the ground and you really contract your glutes, that is going to stop this from happening, hopefully. Last thing we're going to look at is no glute activation, which means that your rep ends up being incomplete and you either don't finish all the way up or you overarch the back because you're not squeezing your glutes. And again, this comes from people learning a deadlift just by picking the bar up rather than driving the feet through the ground and aggressively contracting the glutes. So here we see the first mistake is when people don't quite get it and they just lean all the way back rather than stand upright. This is because they're not contracting the glutes, and when they see other people doing a deadlift, they see them stand up nice and tall, and because they're not contracting the glutes, they don't stand up tall, they just lean all the way back. This is a silly idea and can really risk injury of your lower back. The other way people fail this by not contracting their glutes is they don't quite finish, and they don't contract their glutes, and they don't completely stand up. The bar gets to about right to the top of the thigh, and they don't complete the rep. You're wasting a lot of hip strength development if you don't finish your reps when you're doing them. You're also, again, at risk of putting your lower back out because your glutes aren't taking control of the movement. So again, this is how it should be done. Feet vertical jump width apart, arms straight down, tension throughout from the bar all the way up to the traps through the hamstrings. Bar goes straight up by driving my feet through the ground and aggressively contracting my glutes. And that's what stands me up. Now, let's look at some other notes that we have on a deadlift. Firstly, when you're performing a deadlift, it's ideal that you either wear flat-soled feet for flat-soled shoes. That's a typo. You should wear flat-soled shoes or no shoes at all. If you have shoes on when you're doing a deadlift, you're automatically putting yourself at a disadvantage because you've got to reach lower to get to the bar. You're also putting yourself at a disadvantage because the majority of running trainers and shoes that people wear these days are going to have foam padding, and you're wasting a lot of your energy that you should be pressing straight into the hard ground that's going to get absorbed by that foam. So make sure you wear either flat-soled shoes or socks. Next thing is your grip type. It doesn't really matter too much. Just bear in mind that if you do an over-under grip where one of your palms faces away and one of your palms faces towards you, that you're going to put your bicep at a bit of a risk if you're doing lots and lots of reps at a heavy weight. Otherwise, hook grip, double over. If you need straps for lots of reps or for a really heavy set, that's fine as well, but don't get reliant on straps. Try and build up your grip as you go. When you're looking at lowering the bar, you basically have, you should utilize one of two options, and again, you can choose, or you can pick and choose as you go. It's not like the setup that has to be the same every time. These can be different. So you're going to make sure that if you are going to lower it under control, and if you're in a commercial gym, it's probably best to do this, that you lower it the exact same way that you came up. That means that the bar travels down in a complete vertical line, stays really close to your body, and that you just lower it by pushing your hips back to your knees, and then it goes in a straight line. The other option is this one. Yep, just dropping the bar is not going to get you many friends in a commercial gym. You might even get kicked out, so just be cautious of that. But the reason that you can do that is that you're not really going to get too many gains from the eccentric portion of a deadlift simply because of how heavy the weight is. We're also not going to bounce off the ground or anything. We're going to make sure that the bar comes to a dead stop for every single rep. So dropping it is an easy way of doing it, and also making sure that you can get your setup right for the next time. And as I mentioned, make sure that the bar comes to a dead stop. That means that you're not bouncing the bar off the ground every single time. That means that you are getting set for every single one. So you go through tediously all of the 3 stages that I taught you before to do every single rep. You don't bounce the bar off the ground. You don't get set up for the first one and then don't worry about the rest of them. Every single rep needs to be started from the perfect position. Every single rep needs to be efficient. And then last, and actually probably least, is head position. It doesn't really matter. Ideally, you want to start by looking in the same angle, like keeping your back completely flat and your head doesn't adjust, like so you're not looking up or down. Keep your head in a neutral position. Finally, some random notes. We've got full recovery, which means that you're not going to be doing any deadlift whilst you're really knackered. You make sure that in between sets, you take as long as you need to make sure that you can remember every single step and perform them properly. And on that point, it's important that the technique is there first before you start adding lots and lots of weight. And when you do start adding weight, you make sure that the technique stays. You don't just keep adding weight and keep adding weight. And what you find with some people is that they're okay lifting 60 kilos, but then they push it to 80 and their form gets worse. And then they push it to 100, but they get a PB, but their form is absolutely terrible. You make sure that your reps at 60 kilos are the same as your reps at 100 kilos, are the same as your reps at 140 kilos. And whatever weight you do, your form stays the same. Form is most important, and again, I will reiterate that we're doing this to be better rugby players. We're not doing this to lift the most amount of weight. Yes, lifting a lot of weight is going to make you stronger and it's going to make you a better player, but lifting the most amount of weight isn't our end goal. If we can go through all of these steps efficiently, we're in a great place to build a lot of strength. We're in a great place to build a solid strength foundation. We're in a great place to avoid any injuries and build up our lower back and really build a strong body. But lifting the most amount of weight isn't the end goal. It's becoming a better rugby player. That, my friends, is a deadlift.